was the only time I'd had to actually ask somebody to leave a tour. But the good thing,
that's a very big thing. Yeah, that's a very big thing.
But then the rest of the people on that tour, they behaved immaculately for the rest of the tour.
Yeah. Welcome to the tourism story. In this, we talk about tour guides and other tourism professionals, and they share about their life, and they share about the skills and the knowledge they have learned and how they have learned that. So we are going to talk about that to you. And I'm very thankful to you for giving me this time, your time. I know it's difficult to take out time, and especially in this situation. And I'm really thankful for giving this time to me. And we'll begin with your introduction. So please tell me, how do you see yourself?
Okay, so my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to be here, Ashwani. And how do I see myself? Well, usually I describe myself, if I'm talking about my profession, as a tour guide. I suppose now, since the past 2 or 3 years, now I'm a tour guide and company owner. So I live in New Zealand, and so I guide now most of the year in New Zealand. And then I'm from Scotland originally, and so I usually still go to Scotland every year, and I do maybe about 6 to 12 weeks of work in Scotland every year. So working as a freelance tour guide and working for other companies, but then also doing my own tours and doing 2 or 3 of my own tours every year.
Great. And so you were born in Scotland. Please tell me about that. You were born in Scotland, and tell me about your school and your college life.
Sure. So I was born in Glasgow, which is West Coast Scotland. It's the biggest city in Scotland, population about 1.5 million today. In fact, no, it's less. I get mixed up between my hometown where I was born and my hometown where I live now. So Auckland is 1.5 million and Glasgow about 1 million. I grew up there, went to school there and studied French at university. So I always enjoyed other languages, still do enjoy other languages, learning languages and learning about cultures. And so I suppose that was when I started to get interested in travel and tourism. So I studied French, qualified with my degree in French, but had no idea what I was going to do with that. So I went and lived in Portugal for a year, and I taught English and French there, and I worked as a part-time job in a port wine cellars. So I took tourists around the port wine cellars and realized that I quite enjoyed working in tourism because I like working with people. And I thought, well, this is something I'd like to do back in Scotland. So when I went back there, I studied the tour guide course. So it's called the association is the Scottish Tourist Guides Association, and it's the Blue Badge Guide course. So I did that 2-year part-time course whilst also working as a tour guide in Scotland. So I was doing like minibus tours, and then I qualified from that course and became a freelance professional tour guide.
Oh, tell us about your first experience as a tour guide. That was what were those kind of tours? What were you exactly doing in those tours?
Yeah, so in Portugal it was port wine cellars. So in the north of Portugal, the town is called Vila Nova de Gaia. It's on the south side of the River Douro. On the north side is Porto, and so port wine from the Porto region. I would take people, basically visitors come to visit the different, like they call them cellars because they're kind of underground and where they store the wine. And so I would take basically visitors through the cellars, and I would do tours sometimes in English, sometimes in French. So we go through, talk about the winemaking process, about the history, and then finish in the tasting room and do a tasting of port wine. So it was fun. It was really fun just to. I like, one of the things I like most about, I think, working in tourism is you're working with people they're on vacation, they're on holiday, and so they're usually there.
So they are mostly happy. They are mostly happy, and then that makes you joyful.
Yeah, and I think it's a privilege to get to spend time with people when they're on what should be the happiest time of their year.
Right. They have some kind of positive energy. They are happy. They are laughing, smiling, and then you have to do that. You have to be positive, happy, laughing, and smiling all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So basically that was my first job as a tour guide, and it was when I was in Portugal then that I thought, okay, I'm going to look for jobs that I can do something to do with my languages. At the time I spoke French already, and I was learning Portuguese in Portugal. and I spoke a little bit of Spanish then. Now I speak fluent Spanish as well. So I wanted to do something with languages in Scotland, but not be a teacher. So somehow it just clicked that, oh yeah, it should be tour guide. So I applied for jobs then when I went back to Scotland with just different tour companies, just like mostly sort of driver guiding companies doing tours around Scotland. A few of them got back in touch and said, yeah, we'd like to meet you and things. And one of them said, come and meet us after the summer. The other one just said, come and meet us as soon as you're back. And so I ended up working with that one. So they helped me get the bus license. So in Scotland, it's you get a license that can either cover you just to drive minibuses or full-size buses as well. So I had the one for full-size buses, but most of the time I was driving minibuses. So it was like 16 to 19 passengers, and just me driving with a headset and telling the stories. Yeah, and so usually that was like mostly the day trip that goes from Glasgow to Loch Ness. So Loch Ness is probably one of the most sort of well-known worldwide places in Scotland. People want to see the Loch Ness monster. So we would go there and do like boat cruise and things, and it was like a 12-hour day tour. So that was a really good way to sort of start that kind of tour guiding. So I did the port wine cellars, but then to do the actual tour guiding out on the road and traveling around different places, it was good to learn with the long day tour, because it's quite an intense day, quite a long day, and you have to manage time quite carefully. And yeah, basically working with people from all different nationalities. So it was a good way to learn. And then anything after that seems a bit easier because it's such a long and tiresome day.
Yeah. So I think that's very interesting. I have in India we don't have those kind of bus tours, and there are no bus guides. So can you tell me more about it? How this all is being done? How do you conduct a bus tour? It's very new for me, and I think it's going to be new for most of us who are from the Eastern countries. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of thing that I started with, that was like, so we call it driver guiding. So you're driving and guiding. So with that one, because it's in like a minibus, like you have to have like the headset like clips on here and a microphone here. Yeah. So you have to use that. Otherwise, if you're using like a handheld mic or something, that's illegal.
No.
No. Still a bit of a grey area, to be honest, about even the handheld, even the hands-free one, I should say, because it does take a little bit of your concentration, of course.
Yeah.
When you're used to it and you've done it so many times, you're not saying just a script, but you kind of know the things you're going to say and you just say it automatically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a bit of a grey area, I suppose. And so that's basically the driver and guide in one person.
One person.
So you're kind of managing the whole day. But the other tours that I do now, a lot of the time it's bus tours, but just as the tour guide. So there'll be a separate driver, and then me as the tour, and with the handheld mic. Yeah. So those bus tours, around Scotland. It's just basically people from all different nationalities that go along. A lot of the time, again, the most popular one, it's the one that goes to Loch Ness. So either departing out of Glasgow or Edinburgh and taking a few stops along the way, but the main destination is to Loch Ness, and you do a boat cruise there. So I kind of describe it as like a tour of Scotland in one day. So it's really for people that don't have a lot of time to be able to take it slower and see more. They can just sort of see the highlights, but a lot of the day is spent looking out the window of the bus.
Yeah. So what are the major challenges do you face as a bus tour guide? It's new for me. That's why I'm asking this question. So what are the major challenges you have faced on your tours? Like parking and all those things? Tickets?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, no tickets that I can remember. No, I don't think so. Parking can be a challenge. Sometimes, so I don't do many bus driving guiding now here. But I do driver guiding in smaller vehicles. So maybe 2 or 3 people, or a family of like 5 or 6 people. So yeah, I suppose challenges, is again the concentration thing that you have to. Number one, you have to think about safety. So really you're sometimes maybe not engaging as much as you could be if you're not driving as well. So because you're driving and you're watching the road, but you're kind of having a conversation if they want to have a conversation, or telling them about the key things along the way. But yeah, focusing on the driving. Other challenges, I guess it's just you have to be even more switched on the whole day, rather than just you're guiding, you talk a little bit and then you can kind of sit back, relax, you're focused, and it can be quite long days
or anything.
I think in Scotland, in Scotland they have, like, as well, for driving buses, there's a thing called like a tachograph. And so it measures the driving each day. So it measures the number of hours you're driving and rest time. So you have to fit it into the legal driving limit.
8 hours, I think.
And then we have the same thing here in New Zealand, but it's just with like a logbook. And so each time you stop, you need to note the distance you've traveled, the time, and the location. So that's, I mean, it's not a major challenge, but it's just something you have to remember to do. And do stop. So yeah, kind of admin along the way.
So at the same time, you have to look after your guides and your tourist guests, and at the same time, you have to look after the bus. So I think it's again a big challenge, because there are two liabilities at your hand, and then I'm finding it's a bit challenging. Tourists are themselves a big challenge if they are not as good. So, and then handling a bus is, I think it's a difficult job, difficult than being a tour guide. It's going to be difficult, more difficult as being a bus tour guide. So, and do you consider your first tours as a wine tasting tour guide? Do you think that was your first tour, or do you think after getting the certification, those were your first tours? Which one do you think you will say that these were my first real tours?
Probably I would say not even before really the certification, but when I was doing the job driving the minibus, I would say that was like my first tours. So actually I'd worked it out recently. I looked back to find out the exact date, and it was 21st of March 2009.
Wow, so that was your first tour.
2009 or 2010, let me think. No, it must have been 2010. Yeah, it was my first tour. So actually I worked out that was just over 10 years ago. And my last tour actually that I did just before the pandemic, that was the last night was on the 21st of March. So that night I should have been celebrating. I was going to plan to let people know this is my 10 years ago today that I did my very first tour, but we weren't really in that much of a celebrating mood, and it was more nervous with the pandemic happening. Yeah.
So tell us about your first tour. How was it?
It was interesting. Didn't go perfect. I actually so it was the Loch Ness day trip, so Glasgow to Loch Ness and back. Everything went okay sort of through the start of the day, up until the main visit, Loch Ness. But then on the way back, so we're heading back south, and we're supposed to stop off in a little town just for a break on the way back, just a half an hour coffee stop. And then we'd got there near to where I thought it was, and I was looking for the signs, and I sort of started talking on the microphone just to kind of wake people up and let them know we're nearly there. And I was looking out for the signs for the turn off, looking for the signs, and then I kind of stopped seeing signs with that name on it of the town. And then I said to like two Australian girls sitting behind me, I said, "Did you see any signs for a town called Pitlochry recently?" And they said, "Yeah, we saw them, but it's a bit further back. I've not seen them for a while." I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I'd missed basically the last stop. So I said, "Right, we have to stop somewhere else." So I said, "I'll turn off here and see what's along here." So we just turned off a little road, and quite luckily there was some little goats. And so I'll spell it just in case my accent is difficult. Goats. So Goats. little animal goats.
Goats, yeah.
And they're jumping in the field and bouncing. I thought, oh, that's brilliant. I'll use them as a distraction and work out where I am. Yeah. So I just pulled over and said, does anybody want to take some pictures of some goats? And so people got up. They were enjoying it, watching the goats, taking pictures. Yeah. And then while we were there, I kind of looked around and thought, oh, good, I can see some buildings over that way. Let's go over there. We went over there, and luckily it was another place that some other tours actually use as a coffee stop. So it was quite lucky that we found that. And then, we took a break there, went back, and we probably got back in, I think at least over 1 hour late than we should have been, maybe even more.
No, that's not worse.
That's good. It could be a lot worse. Yeah, but luckily I kind of checked with everybody. I said, anybody got a flight to catch or anything, any dinner reservations? But everyone was nothing. So good.
Nothing.
So,
what did you prepare?
What's that?
How did you prepare for it? What were your mental preparation for your first tour?
So for the first tour, I kind of prepared by learning a lot of the. So I'd been along on a couple of tours, or maybe 2 or 3 tours with other tour guides, and I'd observed them, taken notes. So I'd taken notes about the things that they talk about, and obviously everybody's different. Everyone has different interests. So you talk about what interests you. Talk about just any little things that you find out along the way. So I think for the first few tours, basically I had like 2 or 3 stories of different historical characters. And I probably focused a lot more on history most of the time near the start, because that's just something that I find easy, and it's just something easy to remember, and you don't have to really be looking around as well. So kind of just those sort of maybe 3 or 4 big stories, and then just little pieces of information about the places that we're stopping. And then just, I suppose, so that's kind of what I used, I think, on the first ones, and little by little, again, you just learn more every time. You learn about little things to point out, and you get the timing just great. Just coming up on your left hand side here, we're going to see this thing. And
then you can the route, and you can just tell them before, and that it's going to come on left, and then it's going to come on the right. And what were the changes you made right after your first tour?
Right after the first tour,
small feedback to yourself, anything.
I can't remember, to be honest, right after the first tour, but I do remember that one time anyway, I recorded, so just on my phone, I recorded a voice memo of me talking, for the first hour or something. So I just kind of listened to that, and I sort of thought about, does that, where am I going on too long, or where am I sort of, I don't know, taking too many gaps, or not explaining things clearly enough. So I think it's good to sometimes, not every time, but sometimes sort of record yourself, or have something that you can refer to and assess yourself.
Rather than somebody telling us, it's better we judge ourselves and we give feedback to ourselves. So tell us about the last tour you did. I think you are one of the guides I know who were on the tour even during the pandemic. So tell us about that. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So that was
how did it go?
So that was my last tour just before the lockdown happened here in New Zealand. It was a 2-week tour of New Zealand. So one of the ones I organised myself. So my company is called Mondumo Small Group Tours. So Mondumo tour with 23 tour members from the US. We started on the 9th of March, and at that time, I think New Zealand's first case of COVID-19 was sometime near the end of February. So we only at that time had less than 10 cases or something. And then as the tour went on, obviously it was getting into March was when everything started getting more serious all around the world. By the end of the tour, or actually by about halfway through, New Zealand had already started to shut down the borders. So basically anyone arriving, so people could still arrive from overseas, but anyone arriving had to spend 14 days immediately in quarantine. So it didn't really affect us because we were already in the country and already traveling. But I did say to the people on the tour, I mean, if you want to go home now. I can help you find a way, because things might start getting more complicated. But thankfully for me, I mean, everyone I think was very very resilient and just kind of carried on with it. They said, no, we're all happy to stay. So we made it until the end of the tour. As we got near the last few days, people were checking on their flights, and some had to make like rearrangements because they were planning to stay on longer in New Zealand, Australia, or do something else. So we had to kind of rearrange a lot of things for people leaving. We were able to finish it, but so we finished on this, well, Saturday 21st was our final night together, and then the tour officially finished on the 22nd, Sunday. And by the Saturday, so New Zealand's got like a 4-level alert system for COVID-19. Level 4 is serious, since that's like complete lockdown in the country. Level 3 is like lockdown light. Level 2 is a bit eased again, and level 1 is basically kind of more or less normal life. So by the end of the tour, we'd gone into level 2, and so that meant that like restaurants could only have up to 100 people at a time. So we had our booking in a restaurant. Luckily, we had also private rooms. That was good that we could just be contained ourselves there. But it felt strange at the time. Now it's something that feels very normal here. I don't know about in India or other places, wherever people are watching. But at that time, that was the first time people had actually asked us to give our details, like give our name, address, and
your
contact
details, all about your itinerary and all those things.
So that kind of felt a little bit strange and worrying, I think, for some people, just on that last night meal, like, oh, why do I have to give all my details now? We're used to. But yeah, we had our final night meal, and we carried on, and everyone got away okay. Again, some people had to change plans slightly. A few people did decide to stay on for a little bit, but then so that was the weekend, and then by the middle of that next week on the Wednesday was when New Zealand went to level 4, so the serious lockdown.
And what was going in your brain? What were you thinking? Was there something that was worrying you particularly about yourself, your guests, or your family? What was going on inside you during those days?
I think mostly probably just about all the hygiene things. So just remembering to wash hands. As we were all traveling together, 23 people together, we were like a family traveling together. Like in any tour group, you become like a family, and so we kind of got more comfortable with each other as we got to know each other. And even on the last day, like obviously health advice was to don't shake hands, don't hug people and things, but on the last day, people were still shaking hands and hugging and things. So I think probably for me, just throughout the tour, it was thinking about the hand washing, and I mean, obviously I made a thing of it at the start of the tour to tell people, let's remember to wash our hands and be careful touching this and all that sort of thing. So I suppose there was a lot more. Usually on a tour, I would tell people, usually it's part of my talk at the start on the bus, about talking about hygiene, about like if you feel you've got just a cold or something, try to stay away from other people, just keep it to yourself and try not to spread it. And but I found that it was basically, that was the thing that you're always thinking about throughout that tour.
Health and safety is, I think, the most at the top priority if we are on a tour. It is at the top priority. So do you remember any challenging tour you ever had, most challenging tour you ever had until now?
Aside from that last one, that was probably the most challenging.
That was, I think, that is something unusual. I want to know normal life. I'm talking about the normal before pandemic. Was there a challenging tour you think that this particular tour was a challenging one?
I've had different situations of people that have been a bit difficult to handle, I suppose. I think that generally, because I think I'm quite an easygoing person and I'm quite calm most of the time. I can handle difficult people. I remember one time I had a guy that I think he was just a bit like jet lagged and tired and stuff, and he got a bit annoyed at me or angry or something because I was repeating things. So like we got to a stop, said, okay, everybody come back at 11:15, so that's 11:15. There was a tour of different nationalities, and I said, 11:15, 11:15, just said it in ways so that people got the message. And he came to me and he said, we don't need you to repeat things 3 times. I said, okay. And then and he kind of had a bit of a go about something else. And so then I kind of decided in myself that, okay, I'm not going to take it personally, or I'm not going to start a sort of a battle with him or anything. And I decided that, okay, I'm just going to like kill him with kindness, and I'm just going to show him that I can, regardless of his attitude to me, I can still provide him with a good service. And so I went to him. I said, "Is there something wrong? You okay?" Blah blah blah. And he said, "No, I'm fine, I'm fine." And he was still kind of being quite closed. And then that was on like just a 3-day tour. And so we're traveling up to the Isle of Skye in Scotland. On the second day, we're supposed to travel around the island. But him and his wife said the night before they weren't going to come. So I said, okay, that's fine. And then I thought, okay, I'll again provide a good service and just go along and check if they changed their mind. So I didn't want them to come, but I said, okay, I'm gonna still do my job well and go and see them. So I went along to see them. I said, do you want just to come? And they were a bit nicer by that point, and they said no thanks, no, we've had a lot of traveling, we're just tired and we'll take an easy day today. I said, okay, that's fine. And then by the 3rd day they were nice. It happens.
It happens. It happens.
You
meet people and they have their own issues, and then slowly they become better, I think.
Because it can be sometimes it's just the mood somebody's in, or maybe something else is going on in their life at home, or they've maybe had an argument amongst themselves and they take it out on the tide. But I think you just have to remember to remain professional in those situations. The other one that comes to mind actually was well, it's not, your question was a challenging tour, so it wasn't a challenging tour as such because they didn't stay on the tour. But I had one lady, it was a lady and her son, and it was at the start of a 10-day tour. But by day 2, I had to ask them to leave the tour. So they were just.
What happened?
He was. Well, the son was fine, but the lady, she was just rude to everybody. She did a few things. Also wrote in the guest book at the hotel, so far S **T. So basically writing so far shit in the hotel guest book. And I think, there's probably definitely other things going on, maybe in her mind or her health.
It happened.
But I decided that basically we can't continue like that for the tour, so it's just not going to be comfortable for other people. So I had to try to speak to the son. So the son was in his 50s. The mother was like 80 something, 81 or 2. And so I thought, okay, I'll try to speak to the son and see if I can reason with him. Actually, the other thing that she wanted to know was where we were going to be almost every minute of the day. So at the start of the tour, she said, okay, where are we going to be? What time are we going to get there? What time are we going to get there? I said, well, I can't tell you exactly. Like, we've got an idea, but we don't really know. She was actually late for our first meeting as well. So I tried to arrange to meet with the son, but then she came along as well. So this is on the evening of day 2. And so then, I just sat down with them again, tried to just be calm and professional. And I kind of said, well, why do you think I've asked you to come here? And she said, is it about the book? Oh yeah, because that was the other thing. So there was a lot of things, but she'd written that thing in the book, but also a page out of the book because she wanted to make some notes for herself. So she basically ripped this page out of the guest book, and she said to me, "It's about the book. I can pay for the book. How much is the book? I'll buy a new one." I said, "It's not the book. It's not just that. It's other things as well." And then I just basically let her incriminate herself by saying all the bad things that she thought it could be. So she called me some names and things as well, and I just kind of let her go. And then eventually she stormed out the room, and I kind of said to him, I said, how do you think we can continue this, or how can we resolve this? Yeah, she just couldn't see that it was going to be a problem, and that she was the problem. So she stormed out. And I said to our son, I said, look, it's not going to work. We can't continue like this. You see why? And he said, yeah, I understand. So he went away, and then they didn't show up the next morning. So I assumed they got the message, and yeah. So that was the only time I'd had to actually ask somebody to leave a tour. But the good thing,
that's a very big thing. Yeah, that's a very big thing.
But then the rest of the people on that tour, they behaved immaculately for the rest of the tour.
Yeah, because they have paid and then they have to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's actually, it's actually quite it's a funny thing to say, but it's I don't know if rewarding is the right word, but it's a good feeling to take charge of that yourself and realize that, okay, you can't just let people like that ruin the tour for themselves, for the rest of the group, and for me. So as a responsibility to the rest of the group, I had to sort of challenge that early on, and I suppose it was the right thing to do.
That I agree. I think I'm sure you did the right thing. And so let's move to the future. What are your future plans?
So my main focus really for my future is on growing my company. So I've been a self-employed tour guide for the best part of 10 years, and so working for other companies, and I've had a lot of great experiences working with other companies. But what I really want to do is grow something for myself and for my future and my family's future. So really it's on the focus of growing my company Mondumo Small Group Tours. Up until COVID-19, we were on quite a steady track of sort of growing year by year, just another extra couple of 1 or 2 tours. So basically waiting to see when the recovery comes, and then really carrying on from where we were, hopefully. So I'd like to we've got tours planned for Australia. So I'm based in New Zealand, and the tours are going well in New Zealand. But a lot of the clientele obviously think of New Zealand and Australia together, as a lot of people do, and so they want to do both. And so it's an obvious next step for us. So we're starting with, hopefully, if it can run, a small 6-day tour in Australia in March 2021, and then going to a longer tour in Australia end of 2021, so like October. That'd be 14 days. I'd like to see it just again growing year on year. We'll offer maybe 3 or 4 tours in 2022 in Australia, and same in New Zealand. When the time is right, maybe offer other destinations. I think again, it's the obvious thing is to stay within this general area. I mean, New Zealand is actually far from everywhere. It's it's
just a different world.
So even coming from Australia or going between here and Australia, minimum it's like a 4 or 5 hour flight, so it's not super close. And then everywhere else, of course, is much further. But places within the Pacific Oceania region, maybe offering other destinations as the clientele sort of interest goes. So we always like to ask people, where do you want to go next, and where are you interested to travel to? And if we can make it work, we'll go with those destinations.
So there are just 2 questions next I want to ask you, and I think I've taken a lot of time of yours. So I'm going to ask you last 2 questions. And the first one is, I already asked you this one. And so as a tour guide, what can we do in the pandemic? If we only want to be a tour guide, and that's what we have trained for, and that's what we are passionate for. So what can we do in the pandemic? How can we innovate as a tour guide?
Well, I think one of the things that I see a lot of tour guides doing, I'm not really doing this myself, but is the virtual tours thing. So I think if you have the skills and you have the patience and you have the abilities to do it, it's a good thing. Maybe to be able to still connect with the people that will want to travel again when they can. because there is a lot of people that are there at home. I don't know. Again, it's maybe in different countries it's going at different times. This sort of stuff, but I know that like in New Zealand, people spent a lot of time online and trying to do a lot of virtual things when the pandemic was, or when the lockdown was at its strictest. But as soon as we came out of lockdown, nobody really wanted to spend that time again. So that's one of the things that people can do, I guess. The other thing is obviously looking at opportunities with local tourists. So until people can actually start traveling internationally again, then once they can, again, different countries, different levels of mobility and things. But in New Zealand now, we're allowed to travel around the country freely within New Zealand. So I find that there are maybe more opportunities in that than I at first expected or anticipated. I basically thought, well, no, my work is always with international visitors. I've never done anything with domestic local tourists. But then you realize that at the same time, the tourists or the locals who normally would be going overseas to be tourists overseas, they can't go overseas either. So then they're staying at home. So there is opportunities with that. I think that's one thing. And I suppose as tour guides, naturally also we are teachers. So anything that can kind of overlap with teaching. So whatever aspect of tour guiding or theme or whatever subject area you are most interested in or most knowledgeable about, that's something that you can teach. So just in the same way that you would explain things, or a tour guide would explain things to the clients, to the tourists, you can use that in some other way perhaps to teach it to either other people online or to people in your own community or locally or friends and family even.
Yeah. So those are three things. I think that's great. That's good. Three things. I think that's enough for somebody who really wants to be. And personally, I would like to do virtual tours and I would like to do teaching. Those things are kind of interesting. I have interest in those things. So I'll try to do something like that. And if there is a person who just started their career or who are going to start their career as a tour guide, what are the things you want to recommend them? What are the skills or anything you want to recommend them they should begin with, or they should at least have?
Well, I think to be a good tour guide, you have to enjoy working with people and working for people. So if you don't like people, tour guide's not the right job first to start. So there are some things that naturally you just have to have, and other things that you can learn. So I think as tour guides, again, we always think that you have to have lots and lots of knowledge, and you have to have some knowledge, but more important than having lots of knowledge is being able to transmit the knowledge. So you could be like a university professor, but you're not going to be a good tour guide, because it's about the way that you're trying to explain those things and guide, teach in that sense. I think for someone starting off, not worrying too much about the knowledge is a good thing to keep in mind. Focus maybe more on what I call guiding skills. So basically being able to, again, transmit a good story and keep the attention of your people. Notice as well when they're switching off, notice what excites them. Just good customer service is part of being a good tour guide, and kind of being aware of, depending on what kind of tours, everyone's got different kinds of tours that they do, but what kind of thing the customers actually want. Some people want to know all the history of the country. Other people just want to know where the best coffee and where they should go for some nightlife, and you have to be able to know all of those things. So those things. I think reading basically is important, and you're always learning in this job. So every day you're going to learn something different. I think one other good piece of advice I got when I sort of started off, I was going to be going to a place that I didn't know very well. I'd been a couple of times, but didn't have a whole lot to say about it, and I'd met another tour guide just before, like on a coffee break, just before we were about to go to that place. And I said, what do you normally talk about going there? And he said, well, what do you think you can talk about? I said, I can talk about this and this and this. He said, that's good. He said, just do that. He said, tell them what you know, don't tell them what you don't know. So you don't have to admit if you don't know about something. You don't start off a sentence by saying, oh, and I don't know a lot about that, but you just say, and I do know this. So those things. I think to get into tour guiding, again, it varies in different places around the world and different types of tours, but it's important, I think, to be able to network well and to get to know other tour guides. I think other tour guides can be the best source of jobs. If you're a freelance tour guide and you get asked to do a certain tour, a certain job, you're not available, the person looking for the tour guide will always ask, well, can you recommend someone else? So you recommend someone else, and then later, next time they'll recommend you. And so it helps to build up a network and to always connect with other tour guides where you can.
Yeah. And you shared an example where you skipped your stop, and then you pointed to the goats just to distract people. I think problem solving, or you need to be a quick problem solver, I would say. So I think that's also required when you're on a tour. You need to quickly think of solutions. You need to come up with something better or something new or something different. If you are missing that particular part of the tour, then I think there could be something in your mind that to solve that particular problem and show them something else. I think that's also one should try to come up with. And I think you
have to have a plan A, B, C, and D, and E.
Have your thoughts and have your plan, but also have some B plan instantly, not prepared, but instantly, what you just shared with us. And those things, I think, will come with experience.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was great, and I'm very thankful for you to giving me your time, and I wish you luck. I wish all the best, and stay safe, man. And I hope to connect with you again on some other topic.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, thank you.
Please tell everyone how they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Sure. So I'm on most social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. On all of those, just my name, Colin Mairs, and my company. So just at Colin Mairs on Instagram, at Colin Mairs on Twitter, Colin Mairs on Facebook, and my company Mondumo. So that's Mondumo. We have a Facebook page which I've now renamed as Mondumo by Colin Mairs. So just have my name in there so that people who know me know it's me. And on Instagram as at Mondumo Small Group Tours. I've also got my blog, which I'm dipping in and out of updating, but I should try to do it weekly, I think now. And so that's just on my website, mondumo.com. So Mondumo.
And we can also find you on LinkedIn. That's Colin Mairs.
Colin Mairs on LinkedIn. Yeah, absolutely.
And please tell me, what is Mondumo? What does it mean?
Yeah, so Mondumo is a word actually from the Esperanto language. Do you know? Have you heard of Esperanto?
I'm sorry, no.
It's not a lot of people have. But Esperanto is a language which was kind of invented, I think, in the, gosh, I should know when, but I think early 1900s maybe. And it's basically a kind of a language created out of the most popular languages or most commonly used languages in the world, or in Europe at least. So it's kind of got bits that sound a bit French, that sound a bit German, sound a bit English or Russian. And so Mondumo, it means the world, society, and people. And so I was kind of just looking for a unique word for my company name. I just sort of somehow started looking through different synonyms of world and of travel. And actually, I think I found it through jet set. So it can also mean jet set, but I think jet set sounds a little bit snobby and posh, which I don't mind sometimes. But I think really I want my tours to be more about being. I like to say that they are high end but down to earth. So it's it's about a high-end experience of having a really good experience, but also getting to know the people. So that's where I like the part of Mondumo that means society. So we're people traveling in the world and getting to know the societies of the countries that we visit.
Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful name. I think that's a beautiful name. You gave a great thought.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. That's really good.
My pleasure.
So we'll finish it here, and I'm thanking again. Thank you for your time, and namaste.
Pleasure. Thank you. Namaste.